Round one of voting is over. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 55 of Under the Middle Rope. I'm your host, Jose Taboada, and yes, 1 weekend of voting has come and gone, and after some hesitation or wondering how this is going to go, it ended up being a pretty awesome success. What an awesome first week of the tournament here. Week 1 of 5 down. We do have our winner of the tag team division. So, of course, if you voted, which first of all, thank you if you did, you'll know who made it to the final, or you'll know who you helped to make it to the final. But one man has no idea because he wanted to keep it a secret. And once again, this is where I bring in Mr. Pete Atkinson. Hello, Pete. How are you?
I'm pretty good. You actually managed one take this time.
I did. Haha. The power of behind the scenes and editing, non-existent. Anyways, yes, I did do this in one take. I'm pretty proud of myself there because it's just confidence.
First time ever.
Maybe the first time ever. Actually, you know what? In 55 episodes, it's been really hard to do. I've done I think about 6 or 7 takes of the intro, but today it may be a first. 55 episodes in. But yes, you're here, Pete. Hello, welcome, and you did not want. You said last week when we revealed the tournament that you did not want to be known of anything. You didn't want to know anything. So you're going to get a genuine reaction to all this that went down. Very exciting weekend, no doubt about it. Actually, in the first round, we had one extremely tight race. I did keep you update as to what if it was a smooth round or whatnot, but the first round he knew that there was an extremely tight race. So with that being said, let us bring in our beautiful tag team brackets. Of course, again, you guys were voting all weekend to see who was going to the final 4 of 64 in week 5 to determine our greatest finisher ever. So Pete, you're getting one more look at the round of 16. Any for sure's or any doubtfuls that you may have before I reveal the first set of advances?
There's probably 4 or 5 that I'm very confident on, and then there's 2 or 3 that I think could definitely go either way. I'm fairly confident the 3D is going to go through. I'm fairly confident the heart attack will go through, and I'm fairly confident the Doomsday device will go through. Outside that, I'm not sure there's any guarantees on there, so I'm curious to see.
Well, let's show Pete the first, so the 8 that advanced to the Saturday voting, Saturday to Sunday, and that, my friends, is 3D in the Shield Powerbomb, Spike Piledriver, Demolition Decapitation, Double Chokeslam, and the Heart Attack, Doomsday Device, and the Meltzer Driver. The Meltzer Driver, as you can see there, 56% of the vote on Twitter went to Meltzer Driver. That was only decided in the last 5 minutes of voting. I told Pete, we are nearing a tie. And I was scrambling, we need votes, and then eventually it pushed through to get that 5. The largest margin of win was 3D against Steiner DDT, in which RJ, who unfortunately going to be here today, if you watch March Madness, you know that the schools are ranked by each region, and RJ was saying that is a true 1 seed versus 16 seed.
Whoa, the Steiner DDT is not the 16th seed on this list.
I
am not having that.
It's not. No. It's not. It probably isn't. We didn't rank them for a reason because I feel like that would have made us go crazier. But in terms of the voting, that's what it felt like. Shield Powerbomb winning with 86% of the vote. Spike Piledriver over Big Rig, 62% of the vote. Big Rig with 38. The Viking Experience, by the way, 14%. Demolition Decapitation, 62% over Rocket Launcher, which was 38%. The Double Chokeslam, 63% over Extreme Combination, 37%. The Heart Attack, like you said, as expected, 68% over the Midnight Hour with 32%. The Doomsday Device, you also said that as well, and that was I believe that is the second largest margin of victory there, 81% over Grant Amplitude, which was 19%. RJ did want me to share that he thought that Grant Amplitude did not get enough love, and in fact, he actually expected the upset there. I didn't
expect an upset there, but I do agree that the Grant Amplitude is so underrated. I would have liked to see it do a bit better, but it was up against a phenomenal finisher.
A phenomenal move. And of course, it was also up. I believe it was this one. I think it was Demolition Decapitation, where the only video that I found at the time was a 3D rendering of the move. What Oops.
There are definitely some shocks in here for me, though. Like, some big shocks for me. Like, I would also like to point... So, my biggest one is probably the Spike Pile Driver beating out the Big Rig. That is an absolute travesty in my eyes. Because, let's be honest, FTR uses both of those moves.
They do.
And the Big Rig is by far the more impactful of those two moves.
Can't disagree with that.
Especially if you go back to NXT, it was a super... in my opinion, it is probably the best tag team finisher in the business today. I think it is that good. I think the Big Rig is the best one around today. And it's against the Spike Pile Driver. And the Spike Pile Driver, in my opinion, is so overrated as a finisher because it's a pile driver. And the actual spiking bit, I don't think actually adds much to it. And this is when I come back to people maybe having a bit of inner bias towards certain tag teams. The Spike Pile Driver is obviously very traditional move and stuff. But it's a guy jumps off the second rope, adds a little bit of leverage to a normal pile driver. Compare that to, against, in my opinion, the best finisher around today. Compare that to the bottom one, which is very close. We have the Meltzer Driver against a total elimination. The Meltzer Driver is just a far better version of the Spike Pile Driver.
Probably.
It's a tombstone pile driver rather than a normal pile driver. And rather than just a little jump off the second rope, it's a 450 splash into it.
Yeah.
It's just a better version of that move. And it beat out it only just beat out a worse competitor than the Spike Pile Driver's going to. The Spike Pile Driver had the harder competition, yet won more comfortably than the Meltzer Driver, which I think had the easier competition.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was I was surprised at, I mean, I personally would have voted Meltzer Driver, I think, if I had a say in this vote. And of course, I mean, also as well, Pete did not vote either, obviously, because he wanted to keep it a secret. I didn't vote either. And what surprised me was, again, how close that was. Again, final 10 minutes. It wasn't until like maybe with 4, like I said, 3 to 5 minutes left in the vote, where we only saw the increase. And I was mainly because I was scrambling around telling everybody, did you vote? Did you vote? Like, we cannot have this in a tie. But I mean, and I want to say maybe the only reason why Total Elimination was kept in there, maybe because of the nostalgia. Because I mean, it was a very, it used a lot in ECW as well. That was a movie you saw there more frequently, and obviously, in later promotions. But
it's used a lot by loads of different teams. Obviously, Red Dragon or Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish used it. The Ascension used it quite a bit in their run. Total Elimination. It's used by a lot of tag teams because, to be honest, it's such a simple tag team maneuver. It's an effective one. I like the Total Elimination. I'm just surprised it got that close, and I feel like this is where maybe a bit of tag team, the team's bias comes in.
Bias, yeah. However, I think so. I think so too. I think it's definitely because of the Young Bucks bias.
However, I will say that going the opposite way, the one that I actually agree with on here, but I'm surprised one, is the double chokeslam. Because I was thinking the Hardy Boys are so popular.
Yeah. And
the combination of the Twist of Fate and the Swanton Bomb was so iconic as their finishing for the matches.
And in hindsight,
I'm surprised they win.
Kind of deadly.
Yeah, I'm surprised the double chokeslam, which to be honest looks a little bit awkward and often less impactful than a single chokeslam.
Yeah.
I agree. I prefer the double chokeslam, but I'm surprised that one won out, considering probably the team that used it most was a combination of Kane with either Big Show or Undertaker, as opposed to the Hardys.
On that note, you're looking at the Elite 8, 3D taking on Shield Powerbomb, Spike Power Driver taking on Demolition Decapitation, Double Chokeslam taking on Heart Attack, and the Doomsday Device taking on the Meltzer Driver. In your opinion, what do you see? Who do you see going to the Final Four before I reveal it?
If I was going to guess, I'm a bit surprised. Obviously, I'm surprised. Spike Pile Driver versus Demolition Decapitation, I think, is by far the weakest bracket here. But I think the 3D pips out the Shield Powerbomb. I think it's just a bit more iconic in terms of tag team. I think the Heart Attack has to be out the double chokeslam because, again, just nostalgia, everything about it. And based on how weak the Meltzer Driver did in the last round, I think it doesn't have a shot against the Doomsday Device.
Well, I have to say you nearly got that. Right. 3D advanced it, and who had a tighter margin this time around compared to the Shield Powerbomb, still had a big win. Spike Pile Driver, who you were wondering why it went over the Big Rig, made it to the Final Four over Demolition Decapitation, 71 to 29% of the vote. Heart Attack, like you said, that was definitely a tighter race in the 4 matchups, beating out the whole Chokeslam 54 to 46, and the Doomsday Device 69 over Meltzer Driver 31%. There's your Final Four. So the move that you did not expect to advance made it to the Final Four.
Well, I kind of expected it to maybe go over Demolition Decapitation just because it's a bit more famous. Demolition Decapitation, although very, very impactful, is almost too old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gone back to an era before even the old era. So it's prior to the Heart Attacks, it's prior to the 3Ds, it's prior to all those moves. So I don't know if it's as famous or as popular at that point than those other ones. Honestly, in that bracket of 4, I was so convinced the Big Rig was going to reach the last 4. Advancing through that, I was convinced it was going to. So, to be honest, I was just surprised. I'm very surprised that Double Chokeslam was so close to pipping out the Heart Attack.
I agree. And again, like what I was saying was I had the Heart Attack go. I have Heart Attack going to the final. I do. Before I reveal the finalists here, and again, just edges out Double Chokeslam. Very, very close. But I mean, in the bigger picture, I do like. I mean, I see why 3D is in the Final Four. I do see why the Heart Attack is there. Doomsday Device as well. I saw. But Spike Pile Driver, again, I somewhat agree with you, but I also think it's a pretty cool move, so I get it as well. That said, now your finalists, Pete.
If the Spike Pile Driver beats out the 3D, I'm just going to be in utter shock. Complete shock if the Spike Pile Driver makes it all the way through. I'd have been more curious, and I know it sounds a bit weird, when I was on setting up this bracket, I was expecting a 3D versus Big Rig here, where it was the launch into the other move. And I was expecting like a kind of face-off between the launch into the cutter and the launch into the, code breaker type.
Yeah, I mean, the code breaker, yeah.
And I was very curious to see, because in my opinion, I would still say the Big Rig is the better move. I think the launch into the code breaker is more impactful than a launch into a cutter. So, but I think the 3D has to win that. And I wouldn't be surprised with a landslide. And I kind of think this is going to be a me versus you here, because I kind of want the Doomsday Device to win. I know you were pipping for the Heart Attack, so we'll see.
Well, I lost.
Woo!
3D and the Doomsday Device made it to the final. Again, 3D with another large margin. I mean, obviously not as big as his first run against Steiner DDT, but again, it was just it cruised through the competition, 79 to 21. And then Doomsday Device beat out the Heart Attack, 62 to 38. I did have Heart Attack in the final. In fact, I even said like I would not be surprised if this escapes the whole thing. So there's your finalists, the 3D and the Doomsday Device, right? Finalists.
Yeah. Out of those semi-finalists, without a doubt, yeah. Also kind of what I was expecting, which is really kind of underwhelming from my point of view. I'm sat there going, go on, give me a big upset. Like, I don't know, the rocket launcher makes it all the way through to the final. That would have been a complete mind melt for me. I think there's been a few upsets, in my opinion, especially in that first 16, but I was expecting the 3D to make it this far, and the Doomsday Device is my favorite tag team finisher without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's unbelievably good, and I'm very much expecting to be disappointed here, but I think it should win. I was in last week's podcast, you remember me saying I didn't want to influence the votes because my favorite finisher is in this bracket.
Yeah,
my favorite finisher is the Doomsday Device.
Is the Doomsday Device. Well, I mean,
my favorite finisher is the Doomsday Device. I think it's so impactful. The clothesline into basically knocking them off the shoulders and them going tumbling off the back. Think it's so brutal looking. I love a clothesline. I love the impact of the fall. I love the move. It's such a perfect finisher without it being over exaggerated. And I know I'm probably about to be disappointed because the 3D is more famous and everyone loves the Dudley Boys. I'm going to be disappointed, but we'll see.
Well, Pete, you're in for a surprise. That I faked you out. With 80% of the vote to 20%, 3D advances to week 5.
A lot of
advances to week 5. 3D is our first Final Four finalist, I guess. Our first finalist. 3D escapes the tag team division as the winner here. Again, large margin of victories for
at least 20% of our audience are intelligent.
Probably. I mean,
It's fine.
I mean, look again. If I had a vote, I would, without a shadow of a doubt, have picked 3D as well. And I kind of
Well,
want to
you're
say,
also an idiot. So
I know. I also kind of wonder if it depends on the highlight that I put into the videos, because like the 3D moveset I found on YouTube was an entire compilation of 3D, most of them through tables. It's pretty badass. It's always even as a fan, as soon as you see Devon on the far end of wherever like Bubba is, the fans are already getting up because they know what's coming, right? And they all just echo 3D into the arena. Again, I was always a big fan of that. To me, this is the right winner. I'm like, as soon as I saw 3D, I think win 95% in round one. I'm like, this is probably gonna go all the way. Like, it's literally the largest margin of victory. And Steiner DDT only got a vote, I think, in the last hour, because that was a shutout. 3D had 100% of the votes until the last hour of voting Saturday morning. Saturday morning before the deadline of 11:30 hit. So I'm not surprised.
Honestly, I think I'm most disappointed that the Shield Powerbomb did better against it than the Doomsday device. I think that's where my heart breaks a little bit. I think it's something we might see as a common theme in these 4 or 5 weeks, is when people go back to their nostalgia era and think of their favorite finishes and their favorite moves. I think a lot of people are going to lean on the Attitude Era and that area of finishes between 98 and like 2004.
It's funny because
97 to 04.
It's funny because I mean, you still hear it today on social media, which I think can add on to the little bit of of a toxic environment. It's if it's not as raunchy, or if it's not as energetic, and I say energetic lightly because that's subject to people's interpretation. It's always attitude era. Today's WWE or the WWE mid-2000s was not as good because it wasn't the attitude era. There's always something about it, the attitude era. Oh my sweet Jesus, I'm sorry. I'm also keeping track of the Ecuador-Peru game, and Ecuador just scored before the half.
It's unlucky.
Ecuador. That's so unfortunate.
But
Congratulations.
just to pick up on that as well, I think it's something that we're going to see going. We're going to see something going forward, and it might become prevalent as it strikes next week that we're going to be looking at. And I think this is where I'm definitely going to see nostalgia beat out the better moves, in my opinion.
With the next 16 coming up, or just in general?
Yeah, the next 16.
With the next 16,
I think in general, but the next 16, I think we're going to start to see examples where we have things like the Sweet Chin music in there.
Yeah,
so it's a fantastic move. Love the Sweet Chin music, but it's a super kick, and it's probably going to beat out a lot more impressive looking moves. In my opinion.
Again, I'm biased. I want it to happen, and with Pizza Saints, let's transition and now show you the preview for this weekend's voting. It is a strike division. I've just named them divisions because I couldn't think of another name. It is a strike division coming up this weekend, starting Friday at noon p.m. Eastern time. I believe it's 5 o'clock for the Brits, and if you're living out there in Vancouver, that is 9 in the morning. Whoops. Curb Stomp taking on the Buckshot Lariat. Black Arrow taking on the GTS. Black Mass taking on the Atomic Leg Drop or Hogan's Leg Drop. The Shooting Star Press taking on the Clothesline from Hell. The Coup de Grace taking on the Running Knee. Sweet Chin Music taking on a very delicious spear. The Claymore from Daddy Drew taking on Rey Mysterio 619. And the Kamigoye taking on Okada's Rainmaker, the 16 there. And I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. Go to hell for putting the spear and the Sweet Chin music together, Pete. But it is what it is. I've accepted it. At least I don't know who makes it to the finals because I think there are a lot of great options here. Black Mass could make it to the final too. Sweet Chin music 100%. I think I do think if it's not a final two, at least the final four. The Claymore also I see going to the final four. This is where we're also seeing how big is New Japan present in these votings, because we know there are New Japan stands out there, and if they want to see like a moves like the Rainmaker make it to the Final Four, they got to get to the polls this weekend and get it there. GTS, I think, is also a fair point. If there's any Seth Rollins fans out there that really love the quote unquote former Messiah, they could try to push him over. Again, I do think, and I think Pete's right. I think it will be more on popularity and nostalgia compared to the effectiveness of the move or the appearance of the move.
You don't think we're going to get a bit of a AEW WWE rivalry in that top one there?
We could, and I would be absolutely for it. I would be absolutely for it, but I'm gonna make a Final Four prediction. But this Final Four is like mainly my personal bias here. The GTS, the Shooting Star Press, and that side of the bracket, in the upper half, and in the bottom half, I'm probably going to say Sweet Chin Music and the Claymore. I think those are your Final Four. If my math does add up.
I'm not going to say what I think will get there. I will say what I want to get there. And
that's what I mean. Like, mine is a mix of I think.
What did you say? What did you say for the bottom four?
For the bottom four, I said for the bottom for this region.
For the Claymore, 619, Kamigoye,
Sweet Chin Music and the Claymore to make it to the Final Four.
So I'm going to
outside of the bracket.
Pretty much disagree with everything Jose said, which is
Sweet.
more fun.
Why not? Yeah.
What I would like to see get there, and what I think should get there, is I would go Buckshot Lariat.
Yep.
I would go Black Mass. I would go the Coup de Grace. And I would go with the Kamigoye. As my personal preferences, and I'm going to be honest and say I don't think the Buckshot Lariat gets out the first round.
I don't think so either.
Because I think there's going to be more of a WWE bias towards that, even though I think the Buckshot Lariat is the more impressive.
I think so as well, and that's not just because the main bigger hashtags are WWE hashtags that I put up, which I know gained the more traffic. I think
the Black Mass might. I think the Black Mass might make it to that last four. So
it's a possibility. I 100% see the Black Mass make it to the Final Four. Again, there's also like a very personal bias of wanting to see the Shooting Star Press in a Final Four because I think the move looks cool. But I mean, realistically, I can totally see Black Mass making it to the Final Four.
I'm going to be so sad when it loses to the leg drop. I'm just going to come on and cry.
I will, and I think that's where
you know what? I'm going to come on and cry if the leg drop makes it. The leg drop's going to win this, and I'm just going to quit and be gone. We'll see. I do think the Sweet Chin Music will get to the last four. I agree with you on that. I don't think it should, but I think it will. I love the Sweet Chin Music, but
I just love Sean.
This is what I'm saying with the inherent bias towards certain wrestlers, towards certain
moves.
Feelings. I think there's a lot of bias towards the wrestler and the era more than the actual impressiveness of the
which is fine, but once again, I do remind everybody that yes, the YouTube links are there for you to compare and for you to see.
And to be fair, it is the best super kick. I'm not denying that. Without a doubt, Sweet Chin
without a shadow of a doubt.
By far the best super kick.
And it breaks my heart that you have teams like the Young Bucks have watered down the epicness of a super kick. Because Shawn Michaels, I think, really helped define that move. And then the Young Bucks came along and they just have to use it for every minute and every second.
It's kind of a combination of everything. You had the Young Bucks doing it, you had Adam Cole doing it, you had
Dolph
Ziggler doing it, you had wrestlers like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, all hitting super kicks left, right, and center. It just became a transitional move because
the name of the theme song, the name of the Young Bucks theme song is Super Kick Party.
Yeah.
Enough said.
And it popped the indie crowds, and that's why they did it. Because
it really did.
Everyone used to love it and go, yeah, super kick, yeah, another one, hit another one. And I think they still do it in AEW, and they still do it on the main scene, but I think it's more because they already have established it in that way rather than they would have done it on that scene to start with.
Yep. On that note, let me bring it back to us too, and let's say I think this is where we just put a wrap on the episode here because again, a lot to look forward to in this upcoming weekend is going to be. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, thank you to those who voted last week. We hope to see you guys again this weekend, and I think this is going to be a bit of a tighter. I have a feeling that this is going to be bit of a tight. Yeah, we're gonna see more tighter races.
I think it's more unpredictable.
Yeah, we're gonna. I think we're gonna see
a lot
more
less confidence.
Aside from the unpredictability, I think we are gonna see tighter races because again, there's a lot of great combinations there. But Pete, this is where we say goodbye to you for the day. We will see you once again here.
And you're all still idiots for picking the spike pile drive over the big rig.
Yes,
all of you are idiots.
Yes, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, and as you can see below right now, send your complaints to @NickC_1990. I believe I got it right this time. There is your Twitter handle to @. But thanks, Pete, for coming along. So this is where you come back to me. And yeah, like I'm excited to see what's gonna happen moving forward to the next weekend. Again, it starts this Friday at noon. But for now, all I can say is just that. Thank you so much for watching. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, available wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to us, please, on YouTube. That would be really beneficial. I'm Jose Taboada, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great one.